Today I'm going to show you a very frustrating behavior that you can sometimes experience with update suppression, where player updates can actually cause the server to crash. This has been in the game for quite a long time, and I even experienced this in game actually pretty frequently in survival and Dugged. But for most people, this should be a common occurrence. Thanks to Pollen Breath for actually telling me why this happens. But let's get into the showcase of the bug itself. Now, the reason why I set the tick rate to 5 is to simulate server client desync. So my client is experiencing the game at full 20 TPS right now, but the server is running very slow. So when I do this, I have basically completed my mining action far before the server thinks I should be able to. So you can see it's still there, even though my player mined it, it's still there. You can see that because I right-clicked the spot where the block is and and it reappeared. And when I set it to tick rate 20, see, it caused a server crash and update entities. So it caused a server crash, and that was, from me mining a block, which shouldn't happen, but it does. And that's because when there's that desync between the client and the server, and this is caused either by a bad connection or server lag, and I'm simulating that again by slowing down the tick rate. The server will try and guess when the player mined the block, and then just removes it in the entity phase. And if you know anything about update suppression, you know that's very bad, because the entity phase is not the player phase, and any updates sent in outside the player phase will cause a server crash, and that's what that would have done if we didn't have carpet on. Now, the fix to this is actually pretty simple. Well, there's no fix to actual behavior itself, but we can prevent it from causing a crash. And I'll showcase that, but I'll switch to single player to do so. So we'll make a quick cut. Hey guys, so we're in the single player world here, and here is the fix. And the fix is a filter of sorts. Now, what it's filtering, first of all, is the incorrect update. So it's just preventing the update from actually reaching the suppressor. And how that's doing it, how it does that is it makes sure that these rails are not butted and that they are hard powered during the entity phase. All of these rails here, these three, will never be butted during the entity phase, so they're not susceptible to an update. Therefore, they can't propagate an update, say down here, to like a rail line that would lead into the suppressor itself. And I have that over there, but I'll show in a little bit. Now, how they achieve it is through these 3 pistons redirecting dust. The reason why we need these 3 pistons is so that we can ensure that at least only one of these rails will be, but at least so we can ensure that we have a rail that is butted at any given game tick during the player phase. So what happens is, in the block event phase, this piston either starts extending or retracting, one of these pistons anyway, and that unredirects the dust, so to speak, so that it hard powers this rail. And then later on in the tick, which is directly after the entity phase, one of these pistons is going to have their blocks arrive, redirecting the dust, making one of these rails butted. Now, when they're butted, that's when they're actually susceptible to updates. But before that, nothing happens. I can showcase this by zero-ticking a piston. Because this piston, zero-ticking this block, well, specifically this block arriving, happens after any of these pistons performing their action, either extending or retracting, whichever it is. It can't actually propagate the update simply because they're hard-powered. Now I can showcase this also with a repeater retraction event. Now, repeaters have a high priority, so you'd think that would actually work too, but these pistons still have a higher priority. But it will still let some updates through if they have a higher enough priority, so I wouldn't rely on this acting as a block event update filter. But I don't care about that. I only care about updates that I can't really control just by using safe update suppression practices. things like having a piston extend next to the update suppressor just shouldn't happen. So be careful. Now we can show that it actually prevents entity phase updates simply by having a pressure plate turn on. So all these rails are on, and when I throw that on there, it didn't update any of these pistons simply because those rails aren't powered on then. Now when I remove this pressure plate, one of these pistons will extend simply because I'm removing it in the player phase, so the rails propagate that signal during the player phase. You see that that piston just extend. Now we can rebud the line just by sending an update in the block event phase, because all of these rails should be on in the block event phase. So if we send an update very later than these extending, late in the block event phase, we can ensure that these rails will always turn back on so that it can be ready again. And that's what I'm doing here basically. Here, let me turn that off. So how you would use the suppressor is you turn that on so it lets the suppressor rebud mechanism activate, and then you turn the protection on. Oops, I need to flip that sign around. I'll do it when I create the world download. So then to actually get everything budded and activated, you click this note block, and then you're going to want to check that bud line's good and the filter is good and everything, and also the line leading into the suppressor. Now you can check if it actually updates suppresses. Oopsie. Yep, it updates suppresses. Now if we go down here and I put a note block here, let's do this, pressure plate, and that, you see it actually sent an update to the update suppressor. Let's do that again because it kind of froze my game. Yeah, see, you saw it sent an update. But if we go over to this line here and do the same thing, we will see that, hey, it only unbudded this line, but the update didn't actually make it to the suppressor. So it did what it was intended to do. So that's pretty nice. I could make it to where that happens, it rebuds the line, but in my opinion, I like that confirmation that something bad happened, and so that I can adjust accordingly. If you are bothered by it, that it actually doesn't rebud, I'm sure you can figure out how to do that on your own. So like I said, I'll fix that sign. That's a mistake. I'll leave a world download and a schematic in the description for this device and the suppressor here, and I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.